just say hello again. My name is Salima Raji. I'm President and CEO of the York University Development Corporation, Chair of ULI Toronto. Welcome to our 11th annual Meet the Chief Planners Dinner, celebrating public sector visionaries and the important synergies across the entire land development ecosystem. Your dinner programs include the names and bios of over 50 public senior officials attending this event. And this year, our much expanded dinner program is joined by 50 corporate table sponsors. We sold out 6 weeks ago. Congratulations. Thank you for being here. I am so glad that you're having a good time. I can still hear you having a good time. That makes my heart sing. Thank you so much. In true Urban Land Institute fashion, this dinner brings together the broadest array of real estate and land use professionals across both private and public sectors to advance the ULI global mission, shape the future of the built environment for transformative impact in communities worldwide. But tonight has a special focus. Tonight, our focus is to celebrate the public officials who we look to lead our urban region and our industry through always challenging and ever-changing times. It seems as though each year this event lands at a moment of existential challenge for our industry. Veterans of our March 10th, 2020 dinner will know what I'm talking about. So too will attendees of our post-pandemic dinners with the collapse of our commercial and residential markets after 25 years of boom. And today, April 2nd, a day that marks yet another milestone in the tariff war with the United States, we find ourselves again in a moment of great difficulty. While this and all these challenges are shared across public, private, and not-for-profit sectors of our industry, we all look to the broader public sector to help us navigate and get us through. Our public officials, through their policymaking and implementation, are at the center of our industry's ecosystem, too often unsung and underthanked. And that is why we have established this dinner over a decade ago, to thank our public sector colleagues for their leadership. And so now, I would like to ask tonight's senior public officials to stand up and please be recognized. In another difficult moment, we say thank you. We also want to acknowledge and thank all our table sponsors for tonight's dinner, which is by far our largest ever as it enters our second decade. Many of you are also ULI Toronto annual sponsors, for which we, and personally I, am especially grateful. Your support has allowed us to do something special. In addition to our commitment to keep abreast of the ever-shifting public policy and economic landscape, sharing local and global best practices, and pointing at the many leadership innovation frontiers we need to explore, ULI Toronto is proud that in pursuing the Urban Land Institute's mission, that over the past year we have deepened our commitments to women's leadership, the Accelerating Accessibility Coalition, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and climate change and resiliency. Details of these and other initiatives are found in your dinner books. Also at your place sitting is a brand new publication that we are soft releasing this evening in partnership with the Shared Path Consultation Initiative, a proud product of over 2 years of work of our Truth and Reconciliation leadership cohort, many of whom are here tonight. This is Canada's first real estate and development guide to truth and reconciliation. We are honored to have shared past president and board chair, former chief of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, Carolyn King, with us tonight at our head table. As I described tonight as a soft release of the report, as we want to get each of you an advance copy, in the coming weeks, we will be more formally releasing this report at a ceremony in the Spirit Garden in Nathan Phillips Square. Stay tuned for details. Switching now to the current chief of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, the treaty holders on the lands that we have the privilege to work on, we are honored to have Chief Claire Salt with us this evening. ULI Toronto has a strong relationship with Chief Salt and Council, and we invite her now. Chief Salt. Yeah, perfect. Chief Salt, we invite her now to say a few words to kick off our dinner.
Thank you. Sure. I'm so sorry. I was sitting there engrossed in conversation, not even paying attention that she was calling me. Ani, Magisiway Indigenous Cross, Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation Dunjaba, Makisidodum, Mississauga and Diao. Good evening, I'm the Ogamakway, Chief of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. The Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation are the descendants of the River Credit Mississaugas and Ojibwe Nation. Our ancestors occupied, controlled, and exercised stewardship over approximately 3.9 million acres of lands, waters, and resources here in Southern Ontario. We are the treaty holders of this territory and the only First Nation in our territory that has proper land surrendered treaties with the Crown. We acknowledge the presence of other First Nations who have used the lands within our territory in the past and who continue to use the lands today. Our territory has been home to other First Nations, Métis, and Inuit since time immemorial. Our ancestral worldview was to live in harmony with the natural world, respect life and energy inherent in creation, including humankind, because there is nothing on the planet that will equal us. I'm honored to join you today for this exciting event with the chief planners and organized by the Urban Lands Institute. As the world appears to be going at a high speed in the wrong direction, there's an unquestionable need for planners like all of you. The role of chief planners has changed dramatically over the past few years. Chief planners must embrace a new and more collaborative mandate, and we are in a very collaborative era, to shape the future of cities through visionary leadership, coordinated regional efforts, and forward-thinking policy. The pressures and demands are high. Treaty rights will inevitably intersect in your work. We are all treaty people, as I'm reminded by one of our elders, and our treaties are for you and us. Historically, treaties were used to tell a story and mark agreements between people groups. Treaties were also used to reflect peaceful relations between nations and settle disputes within societies. These agreements set out the rights and benefits for each group. My nation, we try to live by the 7 generations teachings that historically, we've used for many, many generations, and we try to weave that the principles of the 7 generations into our policies. So at the council table every week, our thought is always what happened yesterday, what's going on today, and our planning for tomorrow. It's ingrained, I think, in many of us. My nation has been working diligently on the reconciliation path forward. The calls to action have been dramatically embraced, but we still have a long way to go. Most of the feedback I've heard the last year from across all sectors is that they don't know where to start. ULI has worked diligently on a document that will assist you with how to responsibly implement truth and reconciliation strategy. And miigwech to our former chief, Carolyn King, who assisted in that document. For many reasons, we have an urgency to make real and meaningful changes to meet the infrastructure and housing demands. Your work as planners is the foundation to economic stability, creating safe environments in which businesses can thrive and economies can grow. People are more likely to invest too. Businesses can create jobs and, of course, stimulate economic growth. Worldwide conflict has increased over the last number of years. In an increasing interconnected and interdependent world, some issues are too big for countries to handle on their own. Your jobs as planners are a huge part of that bigger picture. My First Nation recently hired a planner to assist the council with our long-term planning, infrastructure needs, and flood mitigation, etc. For example, we have 120 people waiting for homes, and yet the land that we've designated for those homes requires flood mitigation. We have a need to upgrade our lagoons. We have many projects that we have to prioritize, so I'm happy that we recently engaged a planner. In addition, you can tell, where our buildings are located on the First Nation that we didn't have the luxury of having a planner. So now we're thinking more strategically. Today, in 2025, Canada is attempting to reconcile past grievances by making efforts to advance the rights, perspective, and prosperity of our peoples in Canada. Canada is built on the ancestral lands of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis, and that this country has historically denied our people's rights through assimilationist policies and practices, including the residential school system. Canada is now committed to accelerating its efforts to strengthen relationships with our peoples based on renewed nation-to-nation, government-to-government relationship on self-determination and recognition of rights. Canada has committed to applying reconciliation lens across all sectors. My nation was and is resilient. We are survivors, and we trust, and we still maintain our belief that at the center of the universe dwells the Great Spirit, and that this center is in each of us. Our long-term planning has to be with conviction regarding the generations coming after us. Hope and trust remains alive as we continue the path of reconciliation in this country called Canada. On behalf of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, I hope that you enjoy the evening, and we want to extend a very warm welcome to you all to our homelands, and miigwech to you all for allowing me to share some time with you tonight. Miigwech.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief Salt. It is one of our greatest privileges at ULI Toronto to work with you and your council. I'll notice also that Councillor Salt is here with us as well this evening, so really, really terrific to have you here, Councillor. Good evening. My name is Richard Joy, Executive Director of ULI Toronto. Your program notes say that we're having a Meeting the Moment keynote speech at this moment, but we're actually going to change things up a little bit. So we won't be doing that, but we're going to do a couple of things just to let you know, a couple of program notes. We have an awards ceremony, awards presentation that we were going to put right before the final conversation that we're going to be having to wrap up the evening after dinner. So that will come after dinner. I just wanted to mention a couple of things that we're working on at ULI Toronto that that of note. One of the things that I think that we all recognize is that on top of the U.S. tariff war that that seems to be spiraling further out of control, on top of the pre-existing conditions that have been affecting our real estate market, this past decade has witnessed a lot of public policy finance measures aimed at this crisis, but what it hasn't seen is a lot of coordination. And so I'm going to collapse my remarks a little bit just to say one of the things you should be seeing from us in the coming months is a movement towards a conversation around coordination that really wants to involve everybody in this room, all three levels of government and the private sector. So we're hosting a summit on June the 5th, co-hosted by Mayors Olivia Chow and Stephen Del Duca. Stay tuned for details on that. And lastly, I just want to also point out to you in your dinner program is a delegation to London in mid-June. And we're looking to bring a delegation of private and public sector led by a special delegation that Arcadis, BDP Quadrangle, and ARP are coordinating that aligns with the ULI Europe conference. So we hope that you'll want to join us for that. So I'm going to, as I said, collapse my remarks and give you back some time. So we'll see you at about 7:45. So you have about an hour of dinner conversations. Enjoy. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're back. I'm going to now introduce my colleague, Emma West, who is the past chair of ULI Toronto and current chair of the ULI Toronto Governance Committee, Advisory Board, my apologies, Advisory Board, I never get that right, who's going to present a very, very special award to a trio of developers here in our city. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Emma West. Everybody, please, let's give Emma some quiet while she does this. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. As Richard said, I'm Emma West. I'm a partner at Bousfields, but I also wear many ULI hats. As Richard said, I am currently the chair of the Toronto Advisory Board, but I also have North American roles. I'm the WLI North American chair. I'm the vice chair of DEI for North America, and I'm on the North American board and a global trustee. So it truly is an honor to present this important award to some of our local development leaders. Since 1979, the Urban Land Institute has annually bestowed the America's Award of Excellence to recognize superior development efforts in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors. Winning projects represent the highest standards of achievements in the land use profession and encompass a wide range of land uses, sizes, investments, and geographic locations. The program evaluates submissions on overall excellence, including achievements in marketplace acceptance, design, planning, technology, amenities, economic impact, management, community engagement, innovation, and sustainability, amongst other items. So this is a really big deal and important award. At the fall meeting last year in Las Vegas, we were thrilled to learn that one of our own city's developments was announced as a winner of this prestigious recognition. This project that you can see on your screens is one of Canada's largest and most significant residential developments, totaling over 2,500 units, of which 30% are affordable. It is celebrated as a public-private partnership amongst three levels of government, with a provincial land contribution using the city's Open Door program and CMHC financing. This was a first-of-its-kind model for city building that includes a checkerboard approach to market and affordable units, so all residents thrive together, and the blueprint for the city's Housing Now program. And the feedback on the project has been great, with residents giving Google ratings of 4.9 out of 5, and the Globe and Mail calling it the finest apartments in a generation in one of their recent articles. So, of course, it's a proud moment for Toronto and ULI Toronto to show off to the global attendees at that fall meeting such a successful development model. We know we're great in Canada, and we like to show that to other people. So it's my great pleasure to invite representatives from each of the 3 developers, Tricon, Kilmer, and Dream, to come and accept this award. So please join me in congratulating them for receiving ULI America's Award of Excellence.
Well, yes. Ollie? Thank you. So what's next?
Congratulations.
And then my get my license of choice.
Congratulations.
If I don't manage,
Let's go check.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Thank you all.
Congratulations again.
Thank you, and congratulations. And I will note that this project, I'm very proud that it was acknowledged, but it is really one of the exceptions of where we've been able to get multi-levels of government working together with amazing developers to develop affordable and market housing together. It really stands as an exception to the rule, I would say, for the last decade, and it can't be. It can prove that we can do it, and I think maybe is an inspiration for the future. So very exciting. Congratulations once again. All right, we're down to our last part of our program, a very exciting panel discussion, made even more exciting by the fact that 2 of our panelists weren't able to make it because of the weather. And we've got 2 new panelists who've come in at the very last minute. You were being very, very good sports, so this is going to make for some added excitement. I'm going to ask Sabine Matheson now, principal and founder of Strategy Corp, to come up. Sabine has very kindly moderated past conversations so well, popular demand, she's back. And maybe I'll just hand it over to you, Sabine. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And I think, yeah, I've got a microphone. Well, I want to get my panelists to come on up and will join me up here. This isn't just an exciting ULI week, of course. This is also the week where we celebrate International Transgender Day of Visibility. So look at this. Woohoo! I'm visible, but the point is not to be audible because I have this amazing panel here. So I'm going to ask the questions, but these are the people who you really want to hear for International Planner Day of Audibility. So if you could give me a big hand for my panel here. We've got Jason Thorne from the City of Ottawa. We've got Heather Gray-Wolf from Infrastructure Ontario. We got Gabe Charles from Oakville. And introducing Arjun Singh from Barampta. So we want to cover some of the, the really big important issues with all of the depth that you can in 25 minutes when most of the people didn't know they were speaking. But that's never stopped a group of planners from being spontaneous before. Sometimes it takes long for them to approve things, but it never takes them long to come up with an opinion. So let's begin with an important question, which is the one thing that I know they're all really up to speed on, which is what's going on in your own community. And maybe we can start with you, Jason. What's the moment you're dealing with, and what do you find is going on that's occupying you?
The moment, just one moment. There's a lot of very interesting moments going on right now. There's certainly, I haven't checked the news, so I don't know what happened with tariffs today and all of that kind of excitement. The moment I think I would point to that has got me very excited, and I don't think we've quite started to see the true impact of it yet on Toronto, is that right now, in many ways, just the fundamental DNA of the city is being changed. And that DNA is in the transit investment that's happening that is greater than anything we have seen in decades, and we all know how important transit is to shaping cities. And in the policies and the zoning that exists in the city, within the next few months, we'll have rezoned almost 90% of the properties in the city of Toronto. So the combination of those couple of things means that the DNA of our city is going to be very, very different, and I think we have only just begun to see actually how that's going to shape the future growth and development of the city.
Thanks. Heather, what's going on at IL?
Well, not just at Infrastructure Ontario, but I think for Canada at large, it's a moment of tremendous uncertainty. And so, what we do at Infrastructure Ontario, we consider ourselves that intersection between the public sector and the private sector. And through our work, especially in the development team, we're trying to figure out the best ways to create certainty for the market, certainty of outcomes when it comes to these development opportunities around transit stations. And so we're really leaning into, how can we work with our partners at the municipalities and in the private sector to try to create better certainty in a very uncertain world right now.
Well, and I think it's great because with the partnership we have with the United States of America, we are absolutely certain we don't have a clue what's going to happen next. So that's the kind of collaboration trans-border that you can really look for. Gabe, what's going on in Oakville?
Oakville is now in what I would term as its awkward teenage years. It's really trying to figure out, does it want to be a town, but it's really facing those more city types of pressures. It's really the intensification that's going through, especially around our GO stations. It still has some greenfield areas as well, but it's how does it manage the influx of people and that tension that you end up having of the taller buildings, the more density, and those who are existing in the community currently who are not necessarily adverse, but maybe cautious about additional population. What does it mean when you have tall buildings, when you have those city types of issues coming into a municipality which historically has not really had to face those types of things? So it's the growing pains more than anything as the municipality continues to face those pressures and try to understand how it's going to deal with things like homelessness and the unhoused, and how are we going to accommodate more people in a situation where they're not yet ready to do that.
Interesting. And Arjun, what's going on? Not much going on in Brampton, a little bit of downloading of planning responsibility, fundamental alterations to the Peel system. What's going on?
Yeah, no, thanks, Sabine. I think in Brampton specifically, I've lived in the city for about 15 years and, my parents live there as well. I think the thing that we're seeing is there's a massive transformation that's happening. Specifically, Brampton's now the third largest municipality in Ontario and the seventh largest in Canada. On top of that, we're seeing a large amount of investment into our downtown as well as other greenfield areas that we have in the city. On top of that, we're seeing investments from the provincial and federal level for LRT funding towards a tunnel into the downtown. I think that's another key piece to support the intensification and drive that development that we're looking for. On top of that, we've also, I think just of last week, we've broken ground on our second hospital as well. So a lot of big news in Brampton specifically, and as well as combining with the downloading of the responsibilities from the region as well. That's another aspect of things.
I'm not sure the people from Mississauga heard that. Did you say that you're the third largest municipality?
we love to stress that point to everyone now.
I thought so. The third largest. Who knew? That's really interesting. Memo to final. So interesting because we've got the rewriting of DNA and we've got transformations and growth and then trying to get some certainty out of it. Are you finding that just, and this is free to anybody, are you making some progress in speeding things up? Are you making some progress in getting things going? Like, are you, how's it going?
Yes. And this has been, I mean, I came from the city of Hamilton, now the city of Toronto, and I can say every municipality's been on kind of a very similar journey of what we can do to kind of find efficiencies in Toronto. And so, I mean, in terms of Toronto, I can really only speak as an outsider because I've only been there for a couple of months. But what I've seen already is it's quite impressive the way whole processes have been kind of rethought. I know the stats that, you know, my colleague Valessa Feria is here somewhere, who leads the development review group, and they've got average approval timelines down 80% on all different application types. And it's easy to kind of throw out numbers and metrics, but the work that lies behind those kinds of changes is just astronomical. I mean, it's not just, it's process change, it's organizational change, it's technology change. Like, there is so much that happens behind the scenes to try to move those needles. And so I know when I was at the City of Hamilton, that was a big thing that we were focused on. And from what I've seen so far in Toronto, just really impressed at the kind of the creativity and innovation and risk-taking, I would add, that's actually happening in terms of trying to get timelines as quick and efficient as possible, while not leaving behind just the really important work that happens through the approvals process. And I think that's part of the conversation that maybe doesn't come out enough in the discussion, is the kinds of things that, whether it's municipal planners or our colleagues in engineering and transportation and all the other people who review development applications, the kind of important things that they're looking for and the important aspects of the public interest they're trying to protect as we're trying to welcome all of this new housing and development in our cities.
And just before we go to Heather, how about like Oakville, Brampton, or anything?
Yeah, I know for Brampton at least, we've been able to reduce our development review timelines. That's something that we've taken seriously. I think on average beforehand, we were looking at about 19 months for development review for zoning bylaw, site plan. But now we've been able to reduce that by to 14 months, so about a 5-month reduction. I think the thing to note as well is that, that 14-month period, it's not only the city that's review, it's also that time where we release technical comments or, require revisions to a study that need to be provided to the city before we can support a zoning application. It's that time frame as well that's baked into that 14 months. So it's, almost a two-way street for the relationship between the city and the developing industry.
And Gabe, I know you've been working on a lot of digitization projects in Oakville around the planning processes. How that's going?
Certainly, it's one thing to be able to compress the process. It's something else, though. Does it actually work for our partners in the development industry? So there's more conversations happening in terms of how we're trying to find those efficiency, how we're trying to streamline. Is it actually working on behalf of the developers? Are they along for the ride? So what we've been focused on is not necessarily just can we make the process shorter or compress it, but is it working in the best interest of the developer? So getting their feedback to make sure that the process is efficient for the developers as well, all the way from the very beginning, right from the pre-consultation or the pre-application process, in terms of getting stuff into us. Does that work for them? Does it make sense for them? Are they getting the right kind of commentary back? We've adjusted that process as well, so it's less of a conversation and more of a tell to them, and so they're able to ask more informed questions because they're getting more information up front. So trying to focus the process that way, so it's focused on the developer themselves. Are they getting the information they need right out of the gate, so that they can, when they're making applications, the applications from start to finish is now more compressed because they've had better information up front.
And Heather, how about the process changes you guys are doing?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think this government is really focused on getting things done. There's even a minister of red tape reduction. That being said, with the new development group at Infrastructure Ontario, we're actually building an entirely different approval framework, working with our municipal partners to run a process it's a scoped zoning process. So mostly for sites along transit corridors and in direct conjunction with the investment in subways across the region. We work with development partners sometimes directly. We work on publicly owned lands and with our municipal partners on an abridged zoning process that then results in zoning certainty achieved through a minister's zoning order, which creates the certainty around the zoning and the opportunity, and then we take that out to market to find partners. I would say right now, for a lot of people in the room, maybe zoning approvals isn't the hurdle in terms of getting shovels in the ground. So we are continuing to look at other ways we can be partners with the private sector in order to get all these opportunities under construction. The team that I have has a pipeline of over 200,000 potential units in this region alone. But we know it's a very difficult and challenging time in the market. So we're also looking at other ways we can work to beyond zoning, beyond streamlining approvals with our municipal partners, other ways we can partner with the private sector to get all that economic activity and that much needed housing generated in the region.
So we got people working very hard on the fundamentals during a time of fundamental change. Now, one thing that didn't change is our provincial government. We have the same premier. We got a new platform. The platform put a real focus on two things. One was stimulus to try and deal with the trade war that I guess we could all see coming and that I guess has arrived today. We also had a government who was committed to reducing the approvals times on things and trying to accelerate any kind of investments in infrastructure that would be housing supportive. So that's the broad framework. And I think we're also very fortunate to have an experienced minister in Minister Flack, and actually his chief of staff is here, so I know we want to welcome him here this evening. We also have Minister Graydon Smith, who provides us with deep expertise from the municipal side, given that he's a former president of AMO. So we have in our municipal affairs ministerial team a very nice kind of alignment between sort of deep stakeholder interest. I guess, what are you hoping, and this might be a harder one for you, Heather, to answer in the context of your business card, but what are my municipal gang hoping that the province is going to do?
I'll go first with a nice easy one.
There's a list.
Municipalities need a significant partner at the table for investing in growth-related infrastructure. I agree with you. Like, there's been a lot of time spent on policy and approval timelines, and I think there's been a lot of good work there. But the point is not to create approvals. The point is to create homes. And I think one of the barriers that we see now, it obviously drives the cost of housing, and when municipalities have to recoup those costs through development charges. And there's a lot of debate and conversation about trying to reduce those development charges. What I think for the most part municipalities are okay with. It's just a question of, okay, well, then the costs don't go away. And so I would say this is not just to the provincial government, but whoever ends up being our federal government. There are a lot of revenues that growth brings to other levels of government, and I would love to see more of those revenues pumped back into the infrastructure that actually makes that growth possible. And municipalities can't do that on our own. I'd love to see a lot more provincial and federal partnership with predictable funding that doesn't have, here's some money on the table, and to get this money, you've got to create a new regional plan to be able to access this transit funding, those kinds of things. Just join with us with very clear programs and very clear investments, long-term investments in infrastructure. That would go a long way.
What do you guys think?
I'd suggest that in line with what Jason's saying, from the infrastructure point of view, it's not just the pipes and the roads. It's also how are we actually moving the people around. It's one thing for municipalities to get the policies in place, the zoning in place to build the houses, build the units. But now, how do we actually move those people? And being or reliant on just simply the municipal transit provider isn't going to be sufficient. So how do we get Metrolinx at the table consistently in all of the plans that we're doing? In Oakville, we have a significant investment in our Midtown area, but that only works when Metrolinx is at the table. To get people to the station is one thing, but then we have to get them interregional. And that isn't just on the train, but that's into the bus rapid transit corridors. So how do we make sure that the planning on the BRT side, on the rail side, is coincident with how we're putting people into this area? The discussion has always been putting people close to transit. No problem, we can do that. But now we have to move the people around, and we can't do it by ourselves.
I think the word you're looking for is trans. Yet again, trans-regional, transnational. Trans is the theme of the year. And what do you think, Art?
I think I agree. No, I think I agree with everything that's been said. And, I think on top of that, we have to look to the feds and, to the province for matters that are beyond municipal control. things like, looming tariffs, which I think we've had announcements about just again today, and, looking at the cost and rising cost of labor and, materials and even the cost of land itself. All these things also affect the builder's ability to actually construct these projects while making them worthwhile for themselves at the same time. So I think having that support mechanism from the province and the feds is also crucial, rather than, just taking away the DCs and, making the reductions on fees and, not making up that cost by any means.
I think one of the great problems with having a foreign threat is that undermines the ability that we've always had in Ontario to bring municipalities and the province together by complaining about the feds. Because when we have to rally around the feds, it seriously undermines our ability to sort of come together and complain about them. But I did notice that Jason managed to do it just a little bit there, because he was talking about making sure that where we have multiple levels of government working together to try to avoid stacking slightly different conflicting policies on top of each other as a precondition for funding and getting in each other's face. And I just wondered, do you think we're moving in the right direction in this, or do you think we've got work to do?
Well, I think we're going to have two new governments, and so asking that question in a few months maybe. But it is a problem, and it's not just a problem for municipalities. We hear it a lot, especially from our affordable housing providers, of these sort of conflicting mandates and goals and requirements, and just timelines and financing conditions and all these sorts of things. It just seems that you got three levels of government with three slightly different priorities relating and three slightly different sets of requirements. I think it's it would be nice to have the levels of government with sort of very clear lanes in terms of the supports that they're providing, and not requiring too many hoops that have to be jumped through in order to access that funding.
So look, here's the crazy question of the night, the one that everybody is always waiting for, which is, okay, fine, we've talked about the usual stuff, but you've got like some of the most influential, most remarkable people in the industry sitting here. If you had one really cool thought that you think, yeah, it's approvals times, we've got to speed it up. Yeah, infrastructure, we need more money. We need more money for that. But what's the thing that we're not talking about that we should be talking about? What do you think? Anybody want to kick it off? Jason? Always shy.
I would say, to a room like this, I would just say, bring us great projects. Municipalities, we want to build as well. We want to see the development happening as well. We want to see the housing built as well. It's the thing I hear most when I'm talking to the mayor or councillors in Toronto. It was what I heard in the same in Hamilton. We are partners in building, and I think what I'd love to see from a room like this is bring us great projects. Do your homework in the community. Do your homework in terms of the quality of applications that come in. I won't get on that soapbox, but that can be a bit of an issue when you're sitting on our side of the planning counter at municipalities. But we want to work with you to do really exciting things. So hire great architects, hire great designers, hire great landscape architects, and bring us some really exciting things. And we can work with you to make that happen.
Okay.
You guys had the concept to keys. I guess what you're getting at there is you need great concepts if you want to get to the keys.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that we were all very happy that the concept to keys thing replaced the previous plan, which I think was called Dust Until Death. The slightly less optimistic approval process, but which has been replaced by a more enlightened administration. So I think that's all very good. What do you guys think? I know we had an interesting chat about this, Arjun. You were talking about livability.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the things that we're forgetting nowadays, and I think we have this underlying climate of build housing in any means possible. And I think we're forgetting about a lot of the fundamentals too, things like climate change and considering those when we're doing planning work, things like environmental planning and, considering all these larger factors like active transportation. I think these things are kind of getting left in the dust almost. And I think you said it yesterday when we talked about it before, you're just shouting squirrel and getting everybody to look one way. And then, they're forgetting about everything else that's left on the table.
Yeah.
Good. I think in our context, it's one thing to be able to say we're building for people, we need more density, etc. But it's what comes with that density. And as I mentioned, it's a little bit about moving them around. But now it's also, do we have sufficient places that can actually support the population that's coming into our urban areas? Sure, we're putting people up into the air, but they don't really have that backyard. Like, where does that outdoor living room for people? So what is the quality of place that we have for people outside of that? So one thing we've got a good built form, but now it's that public realm. How do we ensure that that public realm is being designed and built that's going to support people, and it's all ages as well. We're seeing more kids in the more dense areas. We're seeing older people in the dense areas, but now they're bringing dogs too. So how are we actually considering how all of these people and beings are actually going to be interacting with our public spaces, and are those spaces sufficient to support the number of people that are coming into them?
I mean, I would go so far. I think it's bring us your innovation, bring us the different ways we can partner in order to get, shovels in the ground. I know I'm one of those government people who actually hates government. The amount of the layers of approvals and the fighting between all the levels and the different agencies, it's almost impossible to get anything done. That being said, if the private sector has a great idea of how the government can support something, and it will create that certainty for us that it's actually going to get a shovel in the ground, those are the ideas we want to see. I went to a lecture in October, and it was about innovation in industry in general. And of all 18 industries in Canada, real estate and construction was the second least innovative, number 17 out of 18. The only other industry less innovative was agriculture and hunting. And I hear that agriculture is now ahead of construction. I guess hunting stays hunting. I think we all, at the government level, at all levels, including the private sector, we have to think of a new way to do it. Right now, we're in this period of change and uncertainty. It's time to blow it up and try a different way, because we do need to get the shovels in the ground for the region.
I think they like that. So what do you think? Or do we just got a couple of minutes left. Are you optimistic about the time ahead? What do you think we need to do to put our best foot forward? And I'm going to start with you, Arjun.
Yeah, I mean, being in my mid-20s, I think home ownership, from a long point of view, it seems like it's very far away. But I think, there's a lot of optimism. And, I think having conversations with the development industry, we see that there is a desire to actually put shovels in the ground and actually get these projects off the ground and actually pull building permits and actually build the thing, right? We can spend as much time as we want in the zoning approval stage, but, once that approval's done, it's kind of up to the developer to build. And I understand, there's a lot of constraints and such, but I think, in partnership with both the province and the feds, I think we could get over this hump as one community, as Canada all together. And, when we have partners that are not necessarily working with us in that same respect.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I certainly feel a lot more optimistic when I see 20-some-year-olds on this podium tonight saying answers like that.
I do think when we have times like this where it's a little bit more challenging, that's when the creativity really comes to bear. That's when you see the innovation really start to take hold, trying to find new ways to do things. As they say, it's elbows up.
Yeah, I'm always optimistic. I think what we have in front of us, like that prize, and in the case of my team, the 200,000 units that we're trying to get out of the ground, the prize is worth the fight and all the, the struggle day after day. The prize is definitely worth it. I have a great talented team. We have all of you here in the room as partners and potential partners. So I'm really optimistic always for the region, but there's some days that are better than others.
Yeah, I'm very optimistic. I mean, when I had the opportunity to take on this role, I was so excited to do so, because it is it's such a fantastic moment for the region, but I think particularly for Toronto. There are things happening now on the waterfront that have been talked about since I did community activism on the waterfront in the 90s. I'm not in my mid-20s. And to see that stuff that we talked about and dreamed about back in those days actually getting built now is incredibly exciting. I was one of the first people hired at Metrolinx when it was first created. I worked there in 2008, and we talked about these transit investments, and we're never quite sure if it was actually ever going to get built. It's getting built. It's actually getting realized. I look at what's happening at Downsview. We're going to add a city of Peterborough north of the city, and a whole new kind of hub and center to the city of Toronto. And I could go on, but there's some really fantastic generational investments happening right now in Toronto. I think the same is true in other cities, and it's why I was really excited to take on this job. Yeah, I'm very optimistic about the future.
Well, that seems like a terrific place to kind of wind it up, and I'll call Richard back up to the stage. I'd just say, you know, Mike Harris used to have as his slogan, "We're not the government, we're here to fix the government." And I think Heather might have recoined that tonight. Certainly that's always been our slogan at Strategy Corp, sometimes to the annoyance of Mike Harris. But I think that theme of continuously reinventing what we're doing in the sense of, you know, how we deliver the service and the quick turnaround, but also in the quality of what we do and the thing that we keep our eyes on and the way that we keep our eyes on the ball. These are all the important themes, but not being satisfied with the way it's been, always trying to push the envelope, both in the quality of the designs that we're bringing in and in the way we're turning those approvals around. I think those are the big themes from your panel this year. So will you give a big hand to your panel, please?
Good job.
Well, thank you, Sabine, once again for driving a really great, tight, compact, but really rich conversation. I don't know about you, but there was something, maybe it was the weather, maybe it was the geopolitics, but I came into this dinner feeling a little down. I'm feeling a little up now because I think we got some incredible energy in this room. Thank you, all of you, for being part of that energy, not just in this room, but in the work that you all do day in, day out, all the time to build our city, to build our region. It's so appreciated, especially tonight. Our thanks to our public sector officials here on the stage and throughout the room. This is a dinner to say thank you for your leadership, and we really, really mean that in this particular moment that we're in. So that brings to a conclusion, on time, as always, our 11th annual dinner. That is now the largest dinner on record. So again, thank you all for being part of this, and I wish you all a good night.